Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Leonard. I'm chairman of the Milton Board of Appeals. This is the May 3rd, 2023 continued hearing on the application of Warren Moore Enterprises, LLC, regarding your application at 440 Granite Avenue in Milton. This is our third or fourth hearing on this particular matter. The last hearing was on April 19th, 2023. And at that time, the applicant's attorney, Attorney Marion McGettrick, filed a letter with the Board of Appeals. It's been made part of the evidence of this proceeding. It's dated April 14th, 2023, in multiple pages. And in great detail, Mrs. McGettrick went through the various changes that have been made in the project over multiple hearings, particularly with the Planning Board. And so we thank Mrs. McGettrick for all of that, and the applicant and the applicant's experts for all of that information. We continued the matter to this evening because the Planning Board, which had voted site plan approval for this application, was still preparing its decision. And indeed, Mrs. McGettrick yesterday filed the Planning Board site plan approval decision. It's dated April 19th, 2023. It's in 15 pages, and it was filed with the town clerk of the town of Milton on April 28th at looks like 8:38 in the morning. The decision of the Planning Board is very, very detailed, very, very well done. I believe the Planning Board had at least 4 hearings on this particular matter and engaged in dialogue and a cooperative process with the applicant, which has resulted in their site plan approval. So we're going to mark the site plan approval decision of the Planning Board as an exhibit in this case. In the interim, we also did receive a letter in email form from the East Milton Neighborhood Association Board of Directors regarding this hearing. The memo is in 2 pages. It's fairly detailed. We're going to mark it as evidence at this particular hearing. And let me just summarize it to the best of my ability, rather than reading it and putting everyone to sleep. The East Milton Neighborhood Association writes to the Board of Appeals regarding this application. They indicate that Michael Moore, the developer for the project, for the applicant, reached out to the Planning Board 2 years ago and began an extended process of dialogue with the Planning Board, and that the applicant has been responsive to their concerns and has addressed many of them. The association appreciates Mr. Moore's willingness to work with the project, believing that it is closer in appropriate size, scale, density, and to the Planning Board, to the association's beliefs. They state they recognize that the project is not ideal, but they also understand the realities of the current climate of redevelopment in Milton. And they are thankful for Mr. Moore's modification of the plans in response to the neighbors' concerns. They mention 2 or 3 major issues where there were significant changes: the height of the building, which has been reduced from 5 stories to 4 stories, the parking, which has been entirely redone, and the stacking of parking, which had been originally proposed, has been modified and eliminated. And they talk about the design of the project, the brick exterior, which now resembles the brick buildings that are adjacent to the subject property here, and similar to East Milton Square in the town as a whole. So they're encouraged by the collaborative efforts with the board and they write with broader implications. They hope for any other applications that are in East Milton, they hope they have the same cooperative and collaborative interaction as this particular applicant has exhibited, and that the applicant has been a model for future developments. And they thank the Board of Appeals and the Planning Board for its time. So we certainly thank the East Milton Neighborhood Association for their input and their expertise and knowledge of East Milton and its various needs. So we did keep the evidence open for those two documents. Let me ask Mrs. McKettrick, do you have any further evidence you want to offer at this particular proceeding?
No, we don't have any further evidence. I just wanted to make sure that you did receive those two communications.
We did, and we thank you for your assistance in making sure they were received in a timely manner. So if the applicant has no more evidence, let me just ask, generally speaking, is there anybody who wishes to be further heard on this application? Julia, is there anybody out there who has their hand up and wants to be heard on this application?
No hands up.
John, can I ask a question?
Of course you can. You are my next victim. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'll wait.
No. Go ahead.
Okay.
I was going to ask the board members whether they had any further questions or further evidence.
So at the last hearing, there was a question about the work hours with a comment from a resident of Mechanic Street about whether those could be adjusted. I think we had asked the development team to take a look at that, and I wonder if they've got any reply.
No, thank you for refreshing my recollection. That's absolutely correct. Mrs. McKettrick, do you want to address the issues?
We don't have a written response because we're not proposing at this time to agree. Well, I guess what I'm saying is we're asking the Board of Appeals not to limit the work hours in the current construction plan other than what's there, which is what is normally allowed and normally in most other development projects in Milton, and the town actually has restrictions on hours of work for construction projects beyond that. For example, we are not proposing to have this project work on Sundays. It's theoretically possible to do that, but not very common. As far as other adjustments to the hours, I believe that will be controlled by the town, and it should be done very close to the start of construction. And there could be limitations on hours for certain types of activities, such as bringing in heavy equipment, large trucks, during the demolition process, for example. There might be certain limitations, or there probably would be from a practical standpoint, if not in the construction management plan, because there is a lot of traffic around the site. But I would ask the board not to limit them now, because first of all, the town has a lot of oversight on that issue. And also because if you limited the hours to the hours that were suggested in the correspondence, I understand why that would be asked, but it just means that there's going to be less time each day, a lot less, to work on the project. And that means it's going to take a lot longer to complete it. So it's kind of a either you get hurt one way or the other way. If it takes longer, that's extremely annoying to the neighborhood too. So that's the reason I don't want you to impose a rigid structure of hours. And the other reason is just basic fairness. If other construction projects don't have to adhere to such limited hours, I don't think this one should be asked to either. But at the same time, I want you to know that the developer is going to be working closely with the town, the police, the fire department, the DPW, and the building commissioner to determine appropriate hours for certain types of activities and to make every effort not to, obstruct passage of regular vehicles through the site, beside the site.
Jeff, do you have any follow-up?
No, I don't have any. We'll talk about it later, but that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have anything further, Jeffrey?
No.
Okay, Nick Gray, do you have any comments on the traffic issues and the timing and construction and all of that?
No, Mrs. McKettrick's points are well taken, and don't have anything further to ask about that. Thank you very much.
Okay, just for the record, I understand Mr. Mullen's concerns, but I also agree with Mrs. McKettrick that the proper way to handle this is through the town's usual practices, and I have every confidence that the applicant is going to adhere to the requests and the requirements of the building inspector, as well as the fire and police department and the town planner. So I'm sure that will work itself out in some reasonable fashion. Okay, so Mrs. McKettrick, do you have any final words of wisdom, or shall we conclude the hearing?
We tried to update you as much as possible at the last hearing. I don't have anything to add to the information I provided. I did want to point out that I don't believe, I'm not sure that you voted a final version of, maybe you did, but of the traffic, of the parking traffic demand management plan. I gave you a markup of that plan, including comments that had come from some members of your board. And there were no further changes requested from the planning board. But I should send you a clean copy of what I sent before. And I actually don't recall whether I gave you a clean copy last time. So I will do that.
Okay,
that would have to be, and this would be a document that would be referenced in the decision.
Okay, that would be very helpful and very fast. So thank you for that offer. So if you have nothing further, we're going to close the evidence on this hearing. And we had no comments from the general public, but let me just ask for out of caution. Now that the evidence is concluded, is there anybody from the general public who has any comments regarding this application before we vote on it? And Julia, is there anyone out there who?
No hands are up.
Okay. So we'll go to the deliberation phase of this particular application, and let me ask Mr. Jeffrey Mullen. Jeff, do you want to be heard first on this matter?
Sure. I'm prepared to support the application as submitted. I think a combination of the construction management plan, the traffic demand management plan, and the site plan approval by the planning board, which I agree was well done, coupled with the support of the East Boston Neighborhood Association, is sufficient for the applicant to meet its statutory burden on the variances that have been requested. And I think each of those documents should be specifically referenced in our decision. I would also ask that the board specifically note that with respect to the work hours, we should just note for the record that they are subject to adjustment by the town in the event that they deem it necessary to be done, so that nobody is claiming that we specifically approved specific work hours that couldn't be modified, which I think is consistent with the testimony that was offered, but it ought to be plain in the decision. And other than that, I don't have anything to add other than thanking all the people who put so much time into this application for so many years. And that's it. That's where I am.
Okay, Mr. Gray, please.
I second Mr. Mullen's comments. I am prepared to support the application as it's been submitted in this version. I'm grateful to the input from the East Milton Neighborhood Association and the willingness of the developer to go back yet again to the planning board and make substantial changes to the project that help to mitigate some of the concerns. I'm also grateful to Attorney McKettrick for preparing a detailed memo that helps explain some of the factors involved with this particular parcel vis-a-vis its qualification for zoning variances given the statute. And so I'm prepared to support the application as submitted.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gray. My position is I agree with my colleagues. I think this application has a lot of merit. And when I was reviewing the materials this afternoon, it impressed upon me that the applicant here and the applicant's expert witnesses have been working on this application for 2 years. And there have been substantial modifications of this project, both as suggested by the planning board, presumably by the experts for the applicant, as well as working with the East Milton Neighborhood Association, which I think was extremely helpful. I thought the planning board's analysis of this particular application is like a historical review of this project, and it's really a credit to the applicant, showing flexibility and reasonableness in light of issues that are very difficult, because this is a small site and the location is the gateway to East Milton Square, and it's an important site. And it's a site that my notes indicate has not been improved in 70 years. So it's about time for some type of an upgrade. I mentioned in one of the previous hearings that the uses of this site were so bizarre that at one time a fortune teller actually had a sign out there, and hardly an appropriate introduction to the town of Milton to see what that use, which is inconsistent with good development. I think the planning board deserves a lot of credit on this particular application, as does the applicant, and I just don't want to short that in any particular way. I think if you look at the planning board's decision and the evidence that Mrs. McGettrick has offered here, there have been numerous refinements in density, design, parking, public transportation, as referenced by Mr. Mullen and his expertise, and the importance of the project, and the difficulty of developing this site because of its proximity to the expressway. I think the planning board noted properly, as does Mrs. McGettrick, that this project as submitted here is consistent with the town master plan, which is very, very important. And the applicant has not only worked with the planning board and the Board of Appeals, but also with the town planner and the Milton Police Department and the fire department. And it's an amazing amount of effort for a 24-unit project. I want to thank the East Milton Neighborhood Association for their helpful comments. I understand their positions, and I think I agree with their hope that any other projects in this area do have the same type of cooperative attitude and flexibility and communications with the neighborhood in East Milton Square regarding the important aspects of all of these projects. I think that everyone involved in this, including Mrs. McGettrick, has just done a wonderful job making a presentation. Marion it's difficult to follow these changes, and the site plan approval is complex, and Mrs. McGettrick has given us a series of letters which have allowed us to follow the changes, understand them, and appreciate them. So congratulations to Mrs. McGettrick. So that I guess we'll say all those in favor of approving this particular application with the usual conditions that we've mentioned at various points during these hearings, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we have 3 votes. I suppose I may be wrong here, Marion. Tell me if I'm dreaming, but I think on this type of application, should we do a roll call rather than a voice vote? Why don't we do that, just to be sure that we have the appropriate vote. I don't want anybody criticizing the vote. So, Mr. Mullen, how do you vote regarding this application?
I vote in favor.
And Mr. Nick Gray, how do you vote?
I vote in favor as well.
Okay, and the chair votes in favor of it as well. So the vote is 3-0, and the project and the application is approved with the conditions which we've discussed at multiple times on this matter. Let me ask Marion, how do you want to proceed here with this particular application? Do you want to submit a draft decision for the board, or should the board just pick up the ball?
Well, I'm always willing to submit a draft, but I always understand that that's for the board to rewrite as they see fit. If it's helpful to you, I'd be happy to do a draft.
John, speechless.
Yeah, totally.
I think he's going to accept the draft, Marion. Get going on it.
I think if Mr. Mullen were unfrozen, he would say the board was very happy to accept any help you're willing to give.
Okay.
Yes.
Would
Yes.
you agree, Mr. Mullen?
100%. Mr. Gray.
Yeah.
Who needs Leonard?
He may be back.
He can't hear us. He can't hear us right now. We'll talk about him.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm happy to do a draft. It will take a little while. This one's more complicated than some others.
Yeah.
I do
think
ask
it's very helpful, Marion.
Yeah, and there's a lot of details, so it will be a draft. You will need to review it carefully.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, we're very, very grateful for that.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
We should wait and see if John's probably, let me see. I could call him.
Yep.
It's funny, they have spotty coverage over there.
Indian Cliffs, telling you.
He never should have moved there.
Never.
Tough neighborhood.
Glad we had that roll call vote now. Maybe that there's no phone service in Indian Cliffs either.
Can everybody hear me? John, can you hear me? Can everybody hear John? You
No.
can't hear John through? Yeah. John, can you hear me? Can people on the phone hear me?
I can't hear John.
Well, John, say something.
My name is John Leonard. I'm trying to talk to the board.
Supposed to say Mary had a little lamb. That's what Thomas Edison said.
Marion, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. All right. So let's do this. I'll John has relinquished the chair to me, and just for the sake of resolving things, John, while you were gone, member Nick Gray and myself accepted Attorney McEtrick's offer to do a draft. She indicated that due to the complexity of the hearing, it will be a draft. It will take her a little while, and we'll carefully review it and offer our version once we have a chance to review it. So unless you object to that, that's going to be the direction we're going to take.
No, I don't object to it. I thank Mrs. McKettrick for her kind offer. My concern here is that Marion's so intimately involved with this project and it's undergone so many changes that we want to be sure that the draft has the right types of relief granted rather than using our own resources to try to figure that out and come up with something that's with a decision that needs to be amended and will waste everyone's time.
All right, terrific. So that'll be the direction. Thank you. That'll be the direction the board will take. We'll await the decision. In the meantime, when the decision is filed, Marion, you're aware that you want to take steps to, following the appeal period, to have it recorded at the registry in accordance with the usual custom. I know you know those procedures. And unless there's further business in front of the Board of Appeals, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
I second the motion.
Mr. Gray?
Absolutely. Adjourning is great.
Any other business in front of the Board of Appeals tonight?
Not
Okay,
to my knowledge.
we're adjourned. Congratulations to the applicant. Best of
Thank you,
luck.
guys. Much
Right.
appreciated.
You're
Thank you very
welcome.
much.
We look forward to the construction. Well, the
Yes.
finished project and
Yes.
Sorry for the technical difficulties here at the end, but it worked out okay.
Yeah. Thanks,
Good night,
guys.
everybody.
all right.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye now.
Good.